welcome back to another episode of God Built This Podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 193. Okay, let's get on. Let's get on with the show. Let's get on. Y'all just have to be honest. I am going through it emotionally and mentally. I think depression is trying to have its way and is trying to become a stronghold, and it's difficult. So excuse me for not having a Friday episode last Friday. I am sorry, but I am trying my best here. I am here. I am still pushing through, but my God, I read something about, I think I just saw a headline that says job search depression. And that shit, I think that's what I'm experiencing. Like, you know how people just, I guess it's like depression for different types of experiences. Career transition depression, or life changes depression, or, you know, moving away depression, or, you know, grief depression. Like, there's depression for any and every circumstance that you go through in life. And yeah, this is kind of hitting me hard. It's hitting me hard, and I'm not the type of person to necessarily ask for help or share just the vulnerabilities of this time period. But yeah, this is my cry for help. This is my cry for help. I don't want to share this part. Let me not say that. So, but this is my cry for help. I think, and I'm saying this, I'm trying to be lighthearted. I'm really trying to be lighthearted because I think sometimes, okay, what I'm learning about the brain is the brain will sometimes convince you to do things that your at peace and happy self wouldn't do, right? So like if you're feeling more depressive thoughts, then your brain is going to be conducive to that mindset. So if you're feeling depressive or depressed, you're going to think of harmful things. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I hate to even bring this like negative or just morbid tone right now, but I just kind of felt the need to share it out loud because I'm noticing my brain just, I'm having these like crazy thoughts, and I hate to like think that way. Like I want to think more positive. I want to be happy and healthy and whole, but like, oh my gosh, like I don't know. And there was an incident that took place in my apartment complex that just kind of rocked me. Well, I guess I'll just share it. But like someone from my apartment complex decided to take his own life, and he jumped from his balcony and died. I remember that day, and I was leaving. I always go through like the same pathway to exit my apartment complex, and as I was exiting, this was prior to the police sectioning off that whole entryway and preventing us from going through that exit way. So I still had access to that same route. And when I was leaving that route from my apartment complex into the garage to my car, I noticed a body on the ground. I didn't see the body, but I saw a covered body, you know. So I saw something that looked like a body covered up in a white cloth. And I'm just like, I just looked at it and I just went about my business. Immediately, I just thought something that took place with the homeless population here, because I live in the downtown area, the homeless population is heavy. And I just assumed it was, unfortunately, maybe a homeless person who, I don't know, overdosed or, you know, drunk to his death, or drunk to his death, or like maybe he had heat exhaustion. I just thought of those like natural, still sad and devastating, but you know, typically if you're homeless, your I think I heard this from somewhere, but your life expectancy isn't as high as someone who is sheltered and is warm and is in a space of safety, right? When you're out in the streets and you're addicted to substance abuse, your life expectancy statistically is not as high as someone who does have shelter and, you know, safety and warmth and all that. So I just assumed it was something like that. And when it became revealed to me, as well as other residents in my apartment complex, that it was indeed someone who lived here, decided to jump off his balcony, I was rocked. Like, I was so speechless when I heard, when the guy told me that, my concierge guy, my mouth just came up like, was ajar. And I like, what do you say? I never knew anyone who took their own life. I've always heard of different cases of that on TV, right? In movies and shows, in the news, but never in my life, never in my circle or indirect circle, right? Like, no one who I went to school with, whether college, high school, elementary school, like no one I knew, that I knew about at least, right? And maybe there are maybe a few cases, who knows, but no one that I knew ever took their life. And even though I didn't know this person, considering that he was a resident here in this building, right? There's 2 buildings of this apartment complex, and he lived in the same building as me. So the fact that he lived in the same building as me, I may have come across him a couple of times in the elevator, you know, or in the hallway, or not hallway, but you know what I mean. But like in common spaces, in the pool area, in the gym. Like, I may have come across him at some point, maybe even in the garage. You know, we may have exchanged a couple of words to each other. We may have exchanged a head nod. Like, I don't know who the person was. They didn't release a name out of privacy. But it's just the fact that, wow, like, I came across someone who decided to do that. I just couldn't even put into words my reaction. I was just so taken aback. And that just made me so sad. Like, I was just thinking about this person, like, oh my gosh, you know, what could he have been dealing with? Like, all I knew that he was a male. So, you know, what could he have been dealing with? That was hard. For him to feel like that was the God honest way for him to go out. Like, that was the way for him to deal. You know, like, just imagine the pain that he was dealing with for however long, and or who knows, maybe he had some mental illnesses, or maybe he was just in the trenches. Maybe he was in financial despair and he just was completely hopeless. Like, I don't realize, like, it never occurred to me how suicide is so real. Like, how there are people who would go about that route. I don't know. It's just so sad to me. It's so sad. And I think about, like, you know, life is so precious, and how, I don't know. That really rocked me, man. Like, I just feel so bad. Like, damn, you know. So I was just relating it to, you know, just life circumstances. Like, you could find yourself in certain situations in life that could feel so hopeless. Like, damn, there's no hope, right? There's no hope. There's no peace. Things will forever be this way. Like, you feel so hopeless. And the one thing that could lead someone for sure to committing suicide is feeling hopeless. You know, when you feel like there's no better day coming. When you feel like, okay, I'm going to continuously be in this cycle, or, just in this loop. And every time I try to get out of this loop, it never gets better. That hopelessness, it really is a killer. And I think in these moments, it's, I don't think it's about like, mental illnesses, like in particular. I think in my mind, I was only thinking about, oh, well, suicide, maybe that is more so for people who are dealing with just intense mental disorders, right? And, they're battling with demons because of that. And so a demon, due to their mental disorder, right? They may be schizophrenic or whatever it is. But I think I always just associated like those who do commit suicide, they just had an intense case of a mental disorder. And now, granted, I feel like all of us have some level of mental illness. I really do. I think I always say all of us have a level of crazy. But, there's a population of people whose level is much higher than others. Anyway, I think, though, with suicide, it's accessible to everybody. And I hate to even say that. I hate to even like bring that. I'm sorry for making this so morbid. So I guess I need to get this off my chest. But like, I realized that anyone could be suicidal. Like, and I just never thought that the accessibility was that close. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like, I never thought that someone like me could even fathom a suicidal ideation. Like, that's just, it doesn't even make sense in my mind. But again, I feel like it all boils down to hopelessness in like just every capacity, and feeling like no matter what you do, no matter like if you if you stay in the right path, and yet you're on the right path and things still don't work out, it's hopelessness. Like, there is just this intense hopelessness that unfortunately could result into people feeling like, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and end it. God, okay, look, we're gonna try to pick it up, but I think that that incident, that horrible incident, took place a couple of weeks ago, like probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now. And no, I think just 2 weeks ago. It's pretty still recent. And ever since then, I just been like just thinking about that person, and feeling more just anxious and overwhelmed and depressed about like my current situation, and just thinking just negative thoughts. And again, what I'm learning about the brain is if you're in a constant state of depression, naturally your brain is going to feed into that, and it's going to make you think that, oh, okay, well, this is what you do next. And I think, of course, I'm combating that as best as I can. So I think the best way to combat that is to, and I hate to say like be positive, because like it just sounds so flippant. Like, I don't know, like, be positive, right? Or just like remind yourself of just life's beauty, the blessings in life. Like, I think sometimes when you're in a depressed state, you really feel like there's like all hope is lost. And though maybe in one route, right? Maybe right now, yes, I'm not getting the yes that I'm needing, right? Or some type of like financial breakthrough, because that's really what it is. Like, it's not even about like, honestly, I don't even want to work. Like, I mean, can we be honest? Like, I don't even want to work these jobs like that I'm applying to. Like, just fucking okay, here comes the comedy. Like, I don't even want to work here. Like, I don't even want to work here. Like, I don't even want to work at these jobs. Like, when I've completed the interview, whether it's in person or virtual, in the back of my mind, I'm really just here like, I don't even want to be here. Like, I gotta want to do this job. Like, so what do you want to do, Maxine? I want to work for myself. Like, I want to just have enough capital to be able to do that. So, like, honestly, what the hope that I want is the opportunity to do that, right? Like, the wherewithal financially to do that. So the financial breakthrough to do that. How do I get the financial breakthrough? I don't know, by working a job, but like, you know, I'm still waiting on a check coming, and I have yet to receive that check. I'm hoping it comes in this week, so that could help me just feel better. But there's, again, like, when you're, I think, you know, combating depressive thoughts is to remind yourself of the hope and joy that is present in your life. You know, so even though it may not be present in a particular situation, don't focus too much on that situation, and instead focus on all the hopes and joys that you feel in other areas in your life. I think that is helpful. Now, look, I come from a Christian background, as you all know, and I've been back to a physical church, in-person services lately at a Haitian church here that I found, and that's been great. And because of the size of the church, it's like the community style church. And what I mean by that, it seems like a family church. It's an intimate size, and has a visitor. Like, I remember my first time there, which was a couple weeks ago, my first time in service, everyone knew that, right? And that just speaks to the size of the church, right? They know who's new. They know a new face. Everyone's looking, waiting to see, oh, who is this person? Oh, she's new. She haven't been here. And then as they see me consistently, which they have been, it's, okay, this is the new girl who's been coming to church, you know, welcome, all these things. So that's been great. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes, though, coming from a Christian background, you know, yes, I get the whole, and I feel like those who aren't Christian won't even understand. So I'm going to do my best to explain this and articulate it as well as I can. But there's this saying that goes, you know, when you're stressed about life, when you're depressed, you know, or when you're just worried and overwhelmed with whatever life is giving you, right? The lemons that life is giving you, all you need to do is praise and worship. All you need, and I'm laughing, right? Because it sounds, I like to look at things from different perspectives, because, like, I know how it look or how this sounds like to someone who is not a Christian. So I'm trying to view it from that standpoint, so that for those who aren't Christian could understand. Because I get how that sounds laughable in a way, like, oh, really? Praise and worship? All I gotta do is praise and worship, and this light bill gets paid? Or all I gotta do is praise and worship, and my card note is paid? Like, and it's like, yeah, but it's hard to explain if you didn't grow up in that world. But that is the saying. So, like, when you praise and worship, the goal, so let me just explain like this. The goal is to focus on God's goodness and his character and his promises, and believing that it is true and it is so, and that he is a man of his word, and he does not lie, and he is present in your life, and he follows through, and he keeps his promises, and filling yourself up with the word. So, like, what I mean by that is, I have a Bible app on my phone. There's this, like, story, you know, with IG story on Instagram. There's a Bible story, basically. So it's pretty cool and interactive. Like, it's fun. I like it. So it starts off with the verse of the day. There's a pastor or a speaker, a Christian speaker, who gives a visual explanation of the verse and their brief 2-minute preach sermon of the verse, and I think it's very inspirational. And then next, they give you a devotional reading of any devotion, and it focuses on a plethora of things. So like hope, forgiveness, faith, and just so many different things that's related to obviously the Bible and that scripture of the day as well. And then afterwards, you see this like graphic art of the verse of the day. You could share it. It ends with a prayer. So then you pray to God. It literally scripts out a prayer for you. This is the same thing. Was a different prayer every day, but it's the same format as far as having a preacher preach about that verse of the day. You read a devotional for the day that's related to the verse. There's a prayer that's focused on the verse, and then there's finally a graphic art of the verse in which you could share onto different platforms. And I do that sometimes on different platforms. So it's great. It's great and all. Now, where was I going with this? So that's helpful. And what the thing with the Bible is, so again, with the whole praise and worship, you're reminding yourself of the word and God's promises. So with that Bible app and that routine that I do, I get to, in Philippians 5 verse, it says, and that's cool. That's great. And it makes you feel good. And it's like, okay, yes. And it kind of boosts up your spiritual tank. And also, to add on to that, you could watch different sermons. You could listen to gospel music. You could watch testimonies on YouTube. That's what I would try to do consistently, especially when I'm feeling really down. It's helpful, right? It's helpful. But I could understand though, because I feel it sometimes. I could understand how hopeless it still feels when someone says to you, praise and worship. I get it, right? I still get how hopeless you could still feel after someone tells you to praise and worship, worship your way through that. Or, God is able, right? I was speaking to my pastor, and he texted me. It was like, God is able, remember God could do exceedingly and abundant things, and great, all of that is like, oh, okay. It's like you're, how you're running or you're jogging, right? And you kind of prep yourself up, and it's like a nice prep. Okay, yes, God is able. It's a nice, it's like all of that, right? And it's like, okay, but my account still says, right? These responses to these applications still say, right? So sometimes it's like, I don't want to fucking hear that shit. And that's no offense, right? And hello, I want something tangible. I really want something tangible. And now, look, I feel like God created me different. And I feel like if I wasn't created the way I am, I would have probably done some things that maybe wouldn't be moral, right? There's a lot of women who decide to go to the streets, or decide to, do something strange for a little bit of change, and I just was talking about that lifestyle a couple of episodes ago, and how when these women are deciding to meet random guys off of Tinder just because the guy promised them $500, and they meet with the guy, and obviously they have to do some type of sexual exchange to get that money, and maybe the first two guys they did that with, they got out scot-free. They didn't have to they didn't die, they weren't killed from it. Is it scotch-free or scot-free? Someone tell me, because I probably said it wrong. No, but they were successful the first few times, right? And then boom, all of a sudden, the fifth guy they meet up with, because he promised $1,200, he ends up chopping them up and they're dead, right? So like there's a cost to that lifestyle, and I just, no, I'm not doing that. But the point is, I just feel like, look, I get it. Like, I don't even know what to say to people who aren't from a Christian background, and to say to them when they're in despair, praise and worship your way. It's just, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, and I hate to reference, not hate to, but like, you know how sometimes you're grieving the loss of someone, and everyone's grieving that person, right? So I'm speaking about my cousin Joanna, rest in peace. And oh gosh, every time I feel like everyone who's known her, of course, like everyone grieves differently, and some people just like move on, right? They don't want to talk about it anymore. They don't want to reference her anymore. They leave her out of the conversation, and that's their way of grieving. That's their way. As with someone like me, it's not like I bring her up every second, but in reference to a situation that I feel like showed her character more, I did reference her. So what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is that I remember when a couple of years ago, my first year of my own apartment here in Houston, and I was just still like managing my finances and like being the adult that I needed to be, and I was doing well until I was hit with just a car charge that I needed to figure out. Right, I think it was like my car tires, and I didn't have enough money to pay for that, and then my rent was coming up, and it was just all these things, right? And I was so overwhelmed about it, and I felt so just like anxious and stressed and overwhelmed. And I was at work at this time, and I remember I was like hyperventilating, overwhelmed, and that's really, oh my gosh, I was dealing with so much anxiety at that time. Now it's better, but like I remember the first year on my own, I was just so anxious that things will I was just so anxious that the rug underneath me will be pulled away from me. Like I was just so anxious that things will just won't work out, and everything will be taken away from me, and like I was just so afraid about that. Anyway, I remember calling my cousin Joanna and just like so just overwhelmed, just like ranting and just like so sad. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I gotta pay this. I gotta pay. Imagine, I was just like ranting. I was just wanting to hear her calm voice, because she had a way to calm me down. She had a way to make me feel like everything was going to be all right, right? And there was when I called her, when I thought to call her, right, before I dialed her number, there was no expectation or mandate in my mind, oh, I'm gonna ask her for money, or oh, she, I'm gonna tell her this and she's gonna give me, like, there was none of that. I wasn't even thinking about asking her for money. I was just like wanting to cry on her shoulder via the phone, but that was it, right? That was it. And what she did was, not only did she listen to me and made me feel like, she literally said, everything's gonna be okay, calm down. Like, she literally spoke to me so calm. Oh, I just would never forget that. And she was so calm. She spoke to me very calmly, repeated time and time again in that phone call, everything's going to be okay. And the way that she said it was so convincing, like, oh yeah, everything will. And I was gonna be like, okay, you know what, you're right. And I was ready to just like, okay, wrap up the conversation. I'm at work, you're at work. Like, I wasn't expecting anything more than that, right? Yet after she said that, what she said was, how much do you need? I mean, drop the fucking mic. How much do you need? And I'm like, wait, well, the tire is going to be about $340 or whatever it was. I remember it was like in the 300s, and I was just like so overwhelmed. And I was like, yeah, it's about to be 300 and da da da. And I'm like, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna give you that money right now, okay? And I was like, no, I wasn't. No, I'm not asking you. I don't want to, inconvenience you. I don't want to burden you. All these things. And she was like, no, mama, I'm gonna give you the money. Don't worry about it. I promise you, don't worry about it. And she gave me the money, like literally within that hour, within that probably 30 minutes. And I was so just taken aback by her generosity. I always knew she was a generous family member in my family. Like she was always the one to give you the shirt off her back while she would be just bare, right? But there's something to that, right? Because the Bible even speaks to that. And I came across the verse a couple of days ago, but I remember coming across it and I was like, damn, that is so necessary, right? It's more to just saying, hey, I'm praying for you, or, I wish you the best, right? Right, And look, all of that is still appreciated. But I think, though, sometimes, like, we don't ask that question of, like, what can I do to help, right? Or what do you need from me, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be necessarily monetary. It could just be like, oh, I'm going to give you a DoorDash gift card, right? Like, I'm going to take care of this for you. Like, whatever it is, right? And that right there is more than enough. That right there is just so humbling, really, because I think, though, like, we get so caught up in our own lives that we don't see how we can help others. And I'm saying this humbly, though, because it's like, I'm always from the mindset of, like, if I got it, right, and if I had extra of it, like, so, because I've always been kind of, like, tight, right, or I have enough for this, right, but I think eventually, hopefully, I'm trying to keep that hope alive, but eventually and hopefully when I get to a point where it's not only that I have enough for my bills and my monthly expenses and my maintenance, right? But I have more than enough. And that more than enough portion of my income, of my account, I could help others however I can. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm bleeding the bank and I'm being taken advantage of. But if I have a loved one who is just sharing, not even asking for help, but is just sharing just a rough period in their life, right? Just ask, like, hey, how can I help? Or not even just maybe just simply offer, like, hey, I'm going to take you out, or I'm going to do something to relieve the person, because that's a tangible and practical way. And I think I remember the Bible, I read something recently, I don't know what verse it was, I'll reference it at some point, but the word does talk about, help encourage others. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it talks about, like, how can you help others? Like, it talks about, like, encouraging others, not just with your word, but with action. And that is a tangible action. So that's great. Shout out to my parents, of course. They've been practical in that as well. But yeah, aside from them and Joanna, who is gone, I've only experienced that with that, with them. And it's just, it is what it is. Fine. I don't have necessarily obligatory relationships where I don't know, like, it's not, I'm just saying it's nice, right? I think it's the Christian thing to know. And I feel like, reaching out to my not reaching out, but, like, he, when he'll ask, like, I'm honest, like, hey, how you doing? I'm not doing fucking well, right? And I'm not necessarily, like, giving you the details of what's going on in my account or giving you the details of what's going on. I'm not doing that, but if I'm saying, I just feel like, look, if someone's telling you, I'm emotionally down and out, right? I don't want to fucking hear praise and worship your way through it. I don't want to hear your words. I want something practical and tangible. Let's move on. What's that mean? God damn, it's 35 minutes into this. Okay, let's move on, because that was not the goal. I was going to touch on that just real quick, but y'all know I don't talk real quick. I don't fucking talk real quick. Okay, let's talk about Raisa Kegney. I referenced her in a previous episode titled, I may not condone, but I understand, right? Let me make sure. But anyway, I talked about her and her case. And just a quick recap. She is a Cameroonian woman who lived and worked in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, this is the episode. So episode 190, that's the name. That's the episode number, and it's titled, I may not condone, but I understand. And with that episode, I focus, or the cover art is of her, Raisa Kegney. And just a quick recap of that case. She's a Cameroonian woman who retaliated against her former boss and apartment manager, who harassed her and burglarized her home. She shot and killed them and tried to flee Atlanta, but was apprehended at the airport. So why did she decide to shoot and kill these two people? Her former boss apparently was harassing her after she quit her job due to her exposing the fraudulence going on in that job in the leadership of her previous manager. And at first I thought she was fired, but I think she just ultimately quit after being the whistleblower. So she quits, and she gathered enough evidence to proclaim that her former boss was being fraudulent, and she was exposing him for his unethical way of working in that firm. So apparently the former boss got close with her apartment manager. Like, I guess he was able to convince him well enough to enter her home without her permission, of course. So the apartment manager, the reason why she shot and killed him was due to him burglarizing and allowing this burglary to happen. And of course, she lives in an apartment complex, leaving the concierge or just the apartment. They have access to still enter your home without your permission, or without your consent or guardianship or whatever. Anyway, so she came to her home. She claimed that they burglarized her home. Now, apparently there is no evidence that supports that, according to the police. But the way that this case is being described, I really support her. I really don't believe that what the police is saying is factual. Like, I feel like they're dismissing her based off of what I've been reading so far and the new upcoming the new updates that I've read lately. So there's this video clip of Raisa speaking to this police woman at the station. And the police woman is telling her basically there is no evidence that supports a burglary happened. And she was being just completely dismissive to Raisa. Now, look, Raisa in that video, you don't see her because she has a body recording device on her that records the other person, and who she was recording was the policewoman. So we only see the policewoman reacting to Raisa, and we hear Raisa's voice. So Raisa is trying to understand how come she's not receiving any updates to this case or to this burglary that she reported, and how come she's not getting any support. And she's stressed, basically, like, hey, my space is violated, and what I thought was going to help my fraudulent claims against my previous boss and workplace, you guys aren't helping me. So what's going on? Can I see the evidence bag? Or, like, she was asking these questions, and every time she would ask a question, the policewoman was being completely dismissive. She was not listening. She was on her phone. There was a point in time when Raisa was speaking to her, and the policewoman was accepting a call. Now, granted, you're a police officer. You got to be on call. You got to pick up the walkie-talkie or whatever the fuck it's called. Do they even call it a walkie-talkie? That portable radio device, okay? But she got to accept that walkie-talkie to be, in case there's a fucking murderer, on the loose. She got to be ready to, defend. Regardless, though, she wasn't giving Raisa the respect that she deserved, period. And this was before Raisa decided to shoot and kill these two men. So in this moment, Raisa is being dismissed. She's not being at all respected or heard. The policewoman is just rolling her eyes. She's looking around. She's like, I said you need to go back and call this number. There's another burglary number that she need to call. Like, what the fuck? I can't just call 911, bitch. I can't just call 911. So she's doing that, and Raisa is cutting her off because you're not fucking listening to me. Now, I get it. Some people are just like, they don't like to be cut off. I hate people like that. I really do. We're having a fucking conversation, and if you're not answering my question, I'm gonna cut you off. So maybe that's why I hate it, because I'm the cut offer, I guess. But what the fuck are we doing here? And I'm frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. Like, why aren't you caring about what I'm telling you? That's the point. Like, if you're here to service me, you're working for me, policewoman. You're working for fucking me. And you're rolling your eyes. You're so inconvenienced by me asking questions. And who cares if it's the same question or if it's another way of rephrasing the question? Because the policewoman keeps on saying, like I said, you need to call this number. Fuck you, bitch. And it's a black woman. Now, I'm just saying, if you think the voice that I'm giving is a white woman's voice, it's not. Just make that very clear. Either way, so the policewoman is being dismissive to her. She is just making her feel like just a small person, not taking into credit or consideration of what she's saying, not hearing her out. And I find that to be so infuriating. Like, I hate speaking to somebody and you're not even listening to me. You're not responding to what I'm saying. Instead, you're reading off a script. You're literally on the phone or on the walkie-talkie while I'm talking to you. And it was just a rude and horrible exchange. And I was so infuriated just by watching. So I can only imagine how Raisa felt in that moment. Like, of course, and then you're in this like power dynamic as a police officer. Had Raisa gotten loud, what if she just like, you know what? Turn around. You're under arrest for what? For talking loudly to a police officer. Charge 8529. Like, I don't know. Like, that may be a charge. Either way, I still support Raisa. Like, there's this video that I watch of a reaction video of this case. And this woman, the YouTuber, she is basically blaming Raisa for being combative and cutting off the policewoman in speech, and saying that, oh, she's so aggressive and she's so rude. Like, what? I don't have time for the pleasantries, bitch. My home just got burglarized. I'm under attack. I'm not safe in my own home. My apartment manager is responsible for it. My previous job manager is in my home and taking critical evidence, and you're not listening to me. Yo, that's the worst thing you could do to me. Not listen to me. That's why I have a microphone. Right? No, but that is the worst thing. Like, you're not listening to me. Why the fuck aren't you listening? Why aren't you listening? Like, I will go crazy. So excuse me for not waiting until you're done speaking so I can ask this question, because you're not answering the first question, so I'm gonna ask it again. Child, I just hate it. I hate that, and I feel so sorry for her in that situation. There was another example that this YouTuber used to explain why she thinks Raissa is being combative. She was saying, oh, well, there's this clip of her in the courtroom, and apparently Raissa was not appointed a lawyer at the time, or her lawyer wasn't present with her in this space. So she was in the courtroom by herself. You know, of course, there's a police officer on the side, but she was the only one there. There was no one there to help defend her case. And I guess the hearing that it was, maybe a lawyer doesn't need to be present, but that doesn't make any sense. A lawyer should be present at all times. So she's in the courtroom. The judge is on the TV screen. So it's a Zoom type of court hearing. Like, what the fuck are we doing? What is this? You can't come to the fucking courtroom, sir. So, and his screen is not even on. Like, the camera's off, because we see the clip in the video of the judge and the black screen. Like, there's no, you can't see the judge. Like, okay, can you turn your camera on, judge? So the judge is speaking to her and explaining like the next steps, and like, okay, you have a bond set for this and whatever. So he's just going through it. And of course, this is Raissa's first time being in this situation, probably her first time at court as well, and definitely arrested. So there's a lot of questions in her mind, and she doesn't have a lawyer present, at least, that could help guide her in the situation and help her understand. So she is asking questions. So, okay, sure, she's cutting off the judge or whatever, but sir, your honor, if I may. And she's being polite, actually. She's like, your honor, if I may, I would like to explain the situation, or da-da-da-da. And I guess it's the type of court hearing that it is. She's not supposed to, like, it's not a time or space given to explain the situation, not yet, or at least not directly from her, maybe from her lawyer. It's confusing, but either way, she wasn't supposed to talk, apparently. All she was supposed to do is either confirm or deny whatever statement the judge is giving her in that moment. So, like, if you agree or don't agree with the charges, then you stay an extra 60 days in prison. Like, I don't know. But either way, she wasn't supposed to speak. She was only supposed to just say yes or no, affirm or deny. And she wasn't doing that. She was asking the judge if she could explain the situation. She was asking the judge to clarify, and she doesn't understand this. Like, she was trying to understand, and the judge was being loud with her, was like just speaking up aggressively in a tone that I find to be infuriating and disrespectful. So she is, again, another situation where she's not being heard. And I'm just so angry for her. Like, what the fuck? Do I need to go to Atlanta? Defend this woman myself? Because no one is listening to the fact that this woman retaliated. Her life was in danger. Now, sure, maybe she wasn't in direct danger. Maybe her former boss and her apartment manager weren't, up against her neck with a gun or a knife, and she had to shoot and kill them in defense of her life in that very moment. But it could have led to that had she not done what she did. Now, I know the last episode I talked about this and I titled it, I may not condone, but I understand. At this point, I'm leaning more towards I condone. because I definitely understand. I understand how you could be so infuriated. And again, it goes back to the hopelessness conversation I just talked about, right? You could feel so hopeless in a situation, and you feel like, look, the only way to conclude this is by killing somebody. Somebody has to die. And it's not going to be me in this case, right? Like, it's going to be you motherfuckers. These motherfuckers ain't stopping me. Shout out to Beyonce. No, but seriously, like, it's gonna have to be some of y'all, because at this point, y'all playing in my face. You're playing in my face. Now, I just wonder where she got that gun, though. I do wonder, considering that, I don't know, she was just naturally a gun carrier, or she just knew somebody that knew somebody, and she was able to access a gun from that person. But I just always wonder, like, dang, considering that she's a woman too, and of course, yes, there's women who carry guns, but like, I don't know, she's a black woman, she's a Caribbean woman, she's an immigrant woman, she's all these things, and I just wonder, like, dang, how you got a gun, girl? Shit, I need a gun. But no, I feel so sorry for her. And I don't mean that in a pitiful way. I think sometimes people say, oh, I feel so sorry for you. They say it in a pitiful way. And I don't want that to be misconstrued from how I'm saying it. Like, I really feel sorry for her because I'm angry for her, right? I'm angry that she's in the situation. Now, I don't think that she's being heard and she's being respected enough, and that angers me for her. So I feel sorry for the whole situation and for her to be where she is locked up right now, and I just hate that. Now, yes, I get it. Well, what about the people who died, right? There's the video that I watched, the YouTube video. She published a poll saying who's responsible for Raisa's action, so who is to blame for Raisa killing those two men. And the selections were Raisa, her former manager, her former apartment manager, and those are the options. And a majority of people said Raisa. Now, look, sure, you are responsible for your actions, right? So I think that's the mindset people were going with when answering this question. But I just feel like we have to look at the root. What led her to do that? Oh, her life was in danger? Oh, she was being harassed endlessly and no one was speaking up for her? No one was trying to support her. No one was trying to defend her. She went through different routes to get some justice, and she was laughed at. And this policewoman was taking on a walkie-talkie conversation while Raisa was trying to speak to her. Okay, I'm going to shoot and kill. At this point, okay, it's death now. Because you're playing in my face. You're playing in my face. Like, I just don't, like, we don't recognize all of the routes that she took. She took the routes of, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to file a charge. I'm going to seek an attorney. And she did all that. She kept records of evidence that supported her claim of fraudulence, right? She made it clear on LinkedIn as well. She had a LinkedIn account and was exposing the fraudulent behavior of her former boss. And she was doing all these things that was trying to gain some light and exposure and help. Hello? And you had this policewoman laughing in her face. Oh, you're lucky I didn't kill you too, bitch. Like, she was in this murdering spree. She should have killed her. Let me stop. I'm not promoting any of that. But the point is, people are so quick to be like, oh, well, she should have never killed her. She should have never killed them. She should have did this. She should have did that. She did. You don't recognize what she did do. She sought the attorneys. She kept records. She went about making reports, police reports. She did everything the right way. And I just think about, look, when you're in a space in your life and you're doing things the right way, right? You're on the right track. And the result isn't the result that you were promised, right? Let me give you a reference. This is Now, this is not to the same extent as her, right? Thankfully, but it's still in the same vein. So, many years ago, when I was just heavily in the church back home in Boston, I was in the mindset of I'm going to wait until marriage. I'm going to be celibate. I'm not going to have sex until marriage. And I'm going to do this with the promise and belief that God will bless me with my husband, right? God will see that I am waiting and I am a faithful celibate person, and God will bring forth to me a husband. And the lie that is told here, I'm naming it that, is that, oh, you wait for maybe 1 or 2 years, maybe 2 years max, right? But from what was shared about people who've done that, at least people who did it, who I know on TV or on YouTube or whatever, who did that, and like these like previous like these women speakers, women Christian speakers who talk about that, they say, yeah, I waited and 6 months, I met my husband and we got married, and now we live this blissful life, and all because I decided to not have sex anymore. I decided to not have premarital sex and wait until marriage, and God blessed me with my husband. And it's like, that's a fucking lie. This is a lie. Okay? You have people waiting forever, right? And now you're 27, now you're 23, and you've been waiting for 3 years, you've been waiting for 4 years, and it's like, at this point, what the fuck are we doing, right? I'm trying to make sure this is making sense to everyone listening, but the point is, it's like, you're promised this, right? You're promised, oh, this is the tangible result, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and that's not the result. And then you feel like, well, is this even the fucking truth? Right? Or say if you are waiting for the result and you do get that husband, right? Because I've seen examples of this too. Oh my gosh, I waited until marriage. I met my husband. We're married. And he's the worst husband ever. He's cheating on you left and right. He's not providing for your family. He's hardly present in the household. You're basically a single mother, even though you guys have kids together. And this was not the promise that you expected from God, right? So the point of what I'm saying is, you do things the right way, right? Or quote unquote the right way. And you're hoping and believing that it will work out in this way that you're promised it will work out in. And if you get that promise delivered, the promise is sometimes unfulfilled because the person, the husband, is just not at all who you thought he would be. And you're in an unfulfilling and unhappy marriage. Hello. Or the husband never comes, and now you're 42, you're 35, and you're just incredibly lonely. And you're missing out on experiences in life that you never had because you were so narrow-minded and focused on this type of lifestyle. Anyway, I'm relating this to Raisa because she did everything the right way. And she thought, okay, if I go to the police, if I file the police report, if I seek an attorney, if I expose this online, that I will eventually reap my justice, that I will eventually receive the justice that I deserve for the harassment that I've been experiencing for the past couple of months and the burglary that I experienced. And it's like, yet that doesn't happen. you're dismissed and you're disrespected. And now you're left to feeling like a fucking joke. You're infuriated, and I'm going to kill some motherfuckers. Hello? Is the mic on? Hello? Yeah, that's the result. That's the route I'm going to take now, because I tried 7,000 different ways of being right, of being the good girl, right? I'm going to close my legs. I'm not going to talk to the doughboy. I'm going to talk to the good Christian guy. The good Christian guy is just as bad. He just has some unrevealed demons that the doughboy has written all in his face. At least he's transparent. At least a doughboy, you know what you're getting. But the Christian guy, the one in the church, had this persona, is deceitful, and you're believing a lie until you realize, oh my gosh, they're the same nigga. Oh my gosh, they're the same nigga. The point is, look, I hope you guys received that parallel and it made sense to you, because it makes sense in my head. But I just feel like you have to respect people. You have to listen to people. You have to really be a listening ear and not just listen to them, but see how you could help. See how you could be a practical guide in their life. You know, maybe they need support in this area. Maybe they need you to connect them with someone, right? Like, that is a way to help somebody. Don't praise and worship me to them, okay? See how I just related it all together? A complete 180, yo. I'm fucking funny. I'm so funny. Okay, Tiffany Haddish and Aries Spears. I don't even know what to say about this. This is so uncomfortable. Like, I don't even, like, what? Like, what is going on? And yes, I did search for that video because that bitch is nosy. I couldn't get past minute 1 and 30 seconds. Like, it was too cringy and uncomfortable. So for those who may not be aware of the case, Tiffany Haddish, who's a comedian and actress, you guys know her, and Aries Spears, I talked about him in the last episode. Was it the very last episode? And I talked about his comments about Lizzo and how basically it was a right message but wrong messenger. You know, considering that, and Aries Spears is a comedian. He's a funny comedian. I don't like that people are trying to act like, oh, he's not even that funny. Like, y'all shut the fuck up. He's been a working comedian for many, many years, and he's been funny. Like, he's funny. Let's just not act like he suddenly isn't funny anymore just because he didn't agree with Lizzo and the propaganda that she spews. Anyway, what happened? So he and Tiffany Haddish did a skit together years ago, and that skit has now been resurfaced because the then children, now adults, from that skit are suing Tiffany Haddish and Aries Spears due to sexual molestation claims. Yeah, all this is it's bizarre, right? And apparently in that skit, the people who are the adults who are suing them were children at the time. The boy, he was 7, and the woman, she was 14, and it was separate skits apparently, but or maybe it was all in that same skit, but I couldn't finish it. I only got to minute 1 and 30 seconds of it. Anyway, so in that skit, it's described as, from what I read and from what I did see, it's literally titled "In the Eyes of a Pedophile." Okay, and Aries Spears is this pedophile uncle who is watching his niece's son, because she decided to step out of the house and she couldn't bring her son with her. And so she's asking, so the niece is being played by Tiffany Haddish, this adult single mother. They're apparently in the same house together, and Aries Spears is her uncle. And she's like, uncle, I need to go out and do X, Y, and Z. Could you please watch Isaiah, whatever the name of the kid is. Could you please watch Isaiah for me just a little bit until I get back, of course. So he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So she leaves the house. Tiffany Haddish leaves the house in a hurry, in a frenzy, to handle whatever she needs to handle. And she leaves her son, this actor, this 7-year-old actor boy, with Aries Spears, who is playing this pedophile uncle. Now the son is wearing nothing but his drawers. Okay, he only have his briefs on, literally, like he's bare chested, legs out, his hair's a matted cornrow mess, and he only has his underwear on. Like, it's really weird. And he's 7 years old. And Aries Spears is, first he's so he looks like this like raggedy uncle. He looks very just like sweaty and just dirty. First he has on a white beater, and then suddenly his white beater's off. And he's watching the boy play with his car toy on the floor. And Aries Spears is sitting on the couch and he's reading a newspaper, but he's not really reading the newspaper. Instead, we see that in the newspaper, there's a cutout of his eyes. So like there's holes in the newspaper in which Aries Spears is looking through to look at the little boy. So we see him look at the little boy. The boy doesn't see that because the boy is so focused playing with his car toy. So you could sense and feel the sexual tension. That's probably not the right word, but just the feeling that this pedophile uncle is feeling towards this little child. And the background music that's playing, I want y'all to guess. Tell me what you think is playing in the background. I'll give you 2 seconds. 1, 2. R. Kelly. My mind's telling me no, but my body is telling me yes. Ass song. Like, what? This is what the fuck is this? Literally, in the background, you hear my mind's telling me no, but my body. Like, you hear that in the background, y'all, and you see Aries Spears just like sweating. You could tell he's getting horned up, and he's just so aroused by this child. And then in the next part that I saw, within the first 30 seconds, because I couldn't get past, within the first minute and 30 seconds, I couldn't get past anymore, but I think I watched 2 minutes though, but it's 4 minutes long from what I saw. And yeah, within the first 2 minutes, we see that. And then the next part, after he's watching the little boy, he then takes out this random baby oil and he starts like rubbing it or like spraying it on the back of the child. And that's when I was like, okay, this is too much. I mean, it was already too much, but it was like, okay, I don't even want to know where this could go. And of course, it's like, I mean, we're not going to necessarily see him fucking the child, raping the child, but I don't even want to see an illusion of that, right? So I just had to cut it off at that point. But this was an actual skit that these two grown-ass adults decided to do with a child, okay? So disturbing. And so they apparently released this to this platform called Funny or Die, and apparently the platform decided to not go through with it. And I don't know, it's just so weird. Like, what made you think to create this skit? Like, what are we doing? Like, this is not funny at all. There's no humor. Look, and I think everything, there's humor in everything. Like, I think even people, like, there's jokes that you could say about the darkest topics. And yes, that includes molestation. Like, you could find humor to get you through anything. Okay, I really believe that, and I've seen examples of that, so I know it's true. But in this video, this sketch, it was just so poorly done. It made no sense. And allegedly, I gotta start saying allegedly, but allegedly, this was not just a sketch, but apparently, allegedly, the children at the time were groomed and sexually molested in the course of this sketch. So maybe not from what we see in the video, but in the background, right? In preparation for the video, rehearsal, maybe they were allegedly molested. So who knows? But the point is, there's still a video of you deciding to have a sketch in this taste in the eyes of a pedophile. Now, there's reports of their camp saying, oh, this was done to raise awareness about pedophilia. There's so many ways to raise awareness, y'all. Like, you don't have to pedophile. I'm about to say, you don't have to pedophile a child. No, you don't have to be a pedophile to raise awareness of pedophilia. Like, that is not a good excuse at all. So, I don't know. Will they be canceled? Who knows? I do expect to hear some type of response from any of them directly. Now, we'll see if that takes place. I'll keep you guys abreast. But yeah, so that took place, and my question really is to the parent of this child, or both children. They have the same mother, who decided to leave their children in the care of Aries Spears and Tiffany Haddish. Like, I don't understand how that even come about. Like, how did that come about? Like, what do we do? What? And I think there's these like show moms or show dads and momagers who will do anything to get their child into Hollywood, no matter what. And this is an example of pure negligence. Like, how on earth you are letting your child alone at the hands of another adult in the pretense of, oh, well, we're doing a skit. No, if we're doing a skit, I'm right next to the casting couch, right? Like, I'm watching every scene that my child is in. Like, this is not even up for debate. So how was the parent not there? That doesn't make any sense. And how was the parent not just there, but why would the parent agree to this sketch? Did she not know the contents of the sketch? Was she not, like, it doesn't make any, so something's not clear to me. Like, I don't know, maybe there's something that's not adding up. Maybe I'm missing some details that's really behind it all. Aries camp is saying that this woman who is filing against him is actually the result of her parent filing a lawsuit against him years ago. And she was trying to extort money from him years ago, but was unsuccessful. And because that case was unsuccessful, she now has her daughter doing the dirty work of filing a lawsuit against him again. So Aries camp is saying that this is just an example. This is just another extortion case. Tiffany Haddish camp hasn't said anything that I know of yet, so who knows? But this is just so disturbing on so many levels. I just don't understand how a parent could allow this to happen. Like, why weren't you there, and why didn't you know the contents of the sketch to allow your child to be a part of? And if you did know, why would you agree to that, right? Like, if you knew the truth of what this sketch was going to be, just the title alone in the eyes of a pedophile, why would you agree to have your child a part of it? Or just because again, I think there's ways to talk about and show in art form the horrible act of pedophilia. But there's a way to do it without actually molesting a child. Like, let's be a little bit more, let's be creative, right? We don't have to be so direct. So that is the headline. It's just very strange. And the timing of it all, honestly, Literally, just this came about a few days after Aries Spears said what he said about Lizzo and the shit emoji comment he said about her. So I don't know. It's just the timing is suspicious. All this is suspicious, and it's just there's a lot of questions that I have. I think the parent is really to blame. I don't know if I don't want to say I don't believe. The people are like, oh, yeah, how you not believe the children? First of all, they're not children anymore. They're adults now. Like, they're not. It's not like they're 14 years old. They're talking about, no. They're well in their 20s. So I just want to understand, I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm blaming the victim or I'm not believing victims. No, if this really did happen, right? Because, everything is alleged, I wasn't there, so I can't confirm nor deny, but I just feel like we have to ask these questions. Like, something just sounds a little strange. So tell me what you think. If you feel like something's a little off here, let me know what you think. Be sure to be subscribed to our YouTube channel at God Built This Podcast. Just type that in and hit subscribe and click the notification bell. Yeah, the notification bell so that you are notified whenever I post a video. And be sure you are posting a positive review, of course, of this podcast on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and what else am I missing? Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, the whole nine. So just make sure you are supporting this podcast as any way as you can. Be sure to tell a friend And that's about it, y'all. Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. That's what I meant. I forgot to say Apple Podcast. All right. Okay. We are wrapping up here. Thank you so much for listening, and I will check in with you guys next time. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.